The ice bucket in my hand was slick with condensation when I turned the corner and saw them, elevator doors whispering shut behind them, her heel catching slightly on the carpet, his hand still too low on her back. Her laugh, too loud for 2:18 a.m., cut off the moment she saw me. She stumbled a little, blinked, tried to straighten up. He didn't bother. Shirt untucked, face flushed, grinning like he just won something. She opened her mouth, closed it, then leaned closer, eyes glassy. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, she slurred, half a joke, half a dare. I met her gaze and smiled, small, sharp. You mean Mike, I said, nodding once. That secret's already out. The hallway buzzed faintly under the fluorescent lights. Ice clinked in the bucket as I shifted it to my other hand. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I turned, walked past them, and let the door shut quietly behind me. Left her standing there in a sequined black dress that suddenly looked like a costume. Mike said something I didn't catch. I didn't care to. If you're still here and any of this hits a little too close, do me one favor, like the video, and hit subscribe. 97% of people listen and scroll. That one click tells the team these stories matter. Back inside the room, the silence was thicker than before. The curtains were drawn, but I could see the faint red glow of the strip pressing through the fabric. I sat on the edge of the bed, placed the bucket on the dresser, and looked at the hotel notepad beside the lamp. Her handwriting was there. Half a to-do list, half a doodle. My name nowhere on it. I stared at it longer than I should have, then reached for my phone. No text from her. One from my sister. Still thinking about what you said. Call me when you're back. I didn't sleep that night. Just watched the shadows move across the ceiling, thinking about the precise moment her laughter died in that hallway. The way she froze, not guilty, but surprised. Surprised I was awake. Surprised I saw. She hadn't bothered with the cover story. That line, what happens in Vegas, wasn't an apology. It was a signal. She didn't expect consequences, not real ones, not from me. But I'd spent years being the man who forgives too quickly, the one who gives her the benefit of the doubt, the one who accepts half answers and performs stability like a job. That ended at 2:18 a.m. By morning, I'd already booked an earlier flight. No note, no breakfast, no dramatic exit, just a room key left on the desk, face down, and a cold silence where the sound of my voice used to be. The return flight was quiet, almost sterile. I sat in the window seat, hands folded, staring out at clouds I didn't really see. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was sharpening something. Internally, precisely. By the time we landed, the decision was no longer fresh. It was already fact. At the house, I moved like a guest in someone else's life. The pictures on the walls, the wine glasses still drying by the sink, the black and gold suitcase she'd left by the stairs. I didn't touch anything I didn't need to. Just opened the safe in the hall closet, reached for the key taped behind the fuse panel, and drove across town. I hadn't been to the bank in over 10 years, not to that branch. They asked for 2 forms of ID. I gave them 3. When the metal drawer rolled out of the wall, it felt colder than I remembered. Inside, the original prenup, signed in her father's kitchen the night before our wedding, a ledger of the offshore trust my uncle helped me set up before we ever bought the house, and a slim labeled drive, backups, 2009-2021. I slid everything into a leather folio, sealed it, and placed it in my briefcase like it was just another client file. No hesitation, no second look. By Sunday afternoon, the closet was empty on my side, the dresser drawers too, not messy, surgical. The things I left were deliberate. The ring sitting in a small black box on the vanity, a manila envelope with my forwarding instructions, and a sealed letter with just 5 words, forward all further communication to counsel. The fridge still hummed. Her curling iron was still warm from the morning, and I was already driving north. She landed around 7:30 p.m. based on the airline app. I imagined her rolling her bag through the front door, expecting dinner or distance, but not absence. She'd see the half-hung suit that used to be mine gone, the bank envelope no longer in the drawer, no keys on the hook, no me. She called once. I let it go to voicemail. The second time, I forwarded it directly to the firm. I didn't need to explain. Not anymore. Every time I'd tried to name what was off, she'd called it overthinking. Every instinct I'd voiced, she'd smoothed over with her smile and silence. But silence has a weight too, and now it wasn't mine to carry. By the time she sat down in her kitchen that night, her hand likely hovering over her wine glass, phone clenched tight, she didn't know if this was punishment or if I was gone for good. That was the power of it. Oh, she couldn't tell if she was still the one holding the story. The first post went up Monday morning, an image of a sunrise over the ocean with a caption about resilience in transition. No context, no names, just hashtags about healing, self-awareness, growth. By Wednesday, it was a black and white photo of the two of us taken last year in New Mexico. She hadn't tagged me, but the message was obvious. Curated nostalgia, strategic affection, a reminder to the world that we were still navigating life together. Then came the LinkedIn update, a carefully worded joint statement posted through her professional account, citing mutual respect and a shared commitment to personal development. I hadn't seen it before it went live. Her followers applauded her honesty, her poise. Comments poured in, "This is how adults do it. Wishing you both peace and growth." One called us a power couple on separate tracks. She was writing a narrative, one where we were aligned, one where nothing scandalous had happened. But the problem with controlling a story is that other people can tell it too. The first crack came from Mike's wife. She commented, just 6 words. Interesting take considering the elevator footage. Then deleted it an hour later. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots surfaced, threads started, people asked questions, then someone from her firm, probably younger, probably tired of the hypocrisy, posted a 6-second clip. Shot vertically, grainy, dark, but clear enough. Rooftop bar, her in that same dress, leaning into Mike's lap, his hand tracing a line up her arm. The clip found its way to Twitter, then Reddit, then one of those corporate gossip sites that thrives on HR nightmares and scandal. Commenters started pulling receipts, old posts, travel schedules, the Vegas Summit guest lists. People connected dots she never thought visible. I stayed quiet, didn't comment, didn't call, didn't deny or confirm a thing. That silence wasn't passivity. It was precision. Letting her scramble, reshuffle, and backpedal in front of an audience she once curated. She posted a new quote. There are 3 sides to every story. Then another. Sometimes people outgrow each other. The tone shifted from love to ambiguity, from unity to spiritual detachment, but it didn't land. Not after the video. The emails from her sponsor stopped first. Then a few panel invitations were rescheduled. The comments turned. One former colleague wrote, disappointed, but not surprised. She tried to hold the image together, but every fix exposed another tear. Every denial raised another question. And still, I said nothing. The silence wrapped around her version like wire. Each post she made to control the damage only widened it. And somewhere deep inside, I think she realized it wasn't just the betrayal that ruined her credibility. It was that the other half of the story, the quiet half, had chosen not to speak. And that silence made people wonder what she was trying so hard to bury. She changed the tone again, this time to tenderness. A soft focus photo of her walking alone by a river trail captioned, "Sometimes love needs space to breathe." Comments were turned off. She was trying to get ahead of something that had already passed her. When the article hit, she wasn't tagged. It was just a side comment on a leadership podcast buried halfway through an episode about executive vulnerability. The guest, a former HR consultant, spoke casually about the pitfalls of blurred boundaries at leadership events, particularly when 2 married executives were caught in an inappropriate situation during a company summit. Vegas, she said with a tight laugh. Always Vegas. That was all it took. In less than a day, someone stitched together the podcast clip with the rooftop footage. Reddit threads exploded again, and now people weren't just speculating, they were naming. Screenshots of internal emails, Slack message timestamps, conference photos. Someone linked a since-deleted post from Mike's wife, then a leaked memo from a junior associate who'd reported an ethics concern 6 months earlier. The narrative she tried so hard to massage unraveled in real time. She posted one final statement, longer, more formal. "We are navigating a difficult but mutual pause, and I ask for privacy as we reflect and repair." It was a reach back toward dignity, but the oxygen had already been pulled from the room. 2 days later, a journalist from a mid-level business site confirmed the board had held a closed-door session. The firm's stock dropped 7% in a single day, not catastrophic, but sharp enough to rattle their clients. Then the board issued a carefully worded release. Following recent events, we have accepted the resignation of one of our senior executives. While we do not comment on personal matters, we take integrity and leadership seriously and are conducting an internal review into undisclosed relationships that may have impacted company dynamics. They didn't use her name. They didn't have to. Her LinkedIn profile changed silently. Title removed, headline softened to former executive advisor, human first strategist. No announcement, no thank you post, no farewell cake or long goodbye thread. She sent me a message, not an apology, an invitation. Would you consider speaking with someone, a counselor? I didn't respond. I had nothing left to defend, and she had no script left to rewrite. Everything she had built, so carefully manicured, curated, choreographed, had collapsed under the one thing she could never fully control, other people's memory. And I wasn't angry. I wasn't even relieved. I just watched her vanish from the stage she thought she owned, quietly, finally. She started with the inner circle, mutual friends, former neighbors, anyone who'd ever sat across from us at a dinner table and toasted our birthdays. Some ignored the calls. Others answered once, awkward and clipped. They knew what happened, and more importantly, they knew I didn't want to be found. Next, she tried proximity. She flew to my brother's place in Seattle unannounced, stood outside his house in the rain for 20 minutes until his wife opened the door. My brother never came out. She waited in a rental car until dusk, then drove off without a word. I only heard about it days later from him. She looked like a ghost, he said, pale, lost, like she was looking for a door that doesn't exist anymore. Then she showed up at the old office. My name was still on the door, but only because no one had bothered to change the plaque. The receptionist was new, didn't recognize her. She waited in the lobby until someone finally told her, flatly, that I'd resigned 4 months ago. Left no forwarding contact, cleared everything. Must have started sinking in then, that this wasn't a sabbatical. That I wasn't licking my wounds somewhere, waiting for a reconciliation arc. There would be no heartfelt airport reunion, no inbox confession, no final dinner to talk everything through. I was gone. In Oregon, I went by my middle name. Lived in a modest A-frame with solar panels on the roof and pine needles always catching in the doorway. The team at the solar coop didn't ask many questions, and I didn't offer any. I woke up before dawn, split wood when it was cold, worked on infrastructure proposals during the day. No wedding ring, no social media, just clean air and quiet rhythm. She messaged my sister next. I saw the screenshot weeks later. Just one sentence, please. Just tell me if he's okay. My sister waited a full day before replying, then wrote back, he's more than okay. He's just done. That was the moment. Not when I walked out of the hotel in Vegas. Not when the board issued their statement. Not even when the office door wouldn't open. That was when she felt the permanence. The end without a period. Because she hadn't been trying to fix anything. She'd been trying to rewind, to soften the edges, to find some thread she could still pull that might bring me back to the version of myself that always gave her another chance. But he didn't live here anymore. And once she realized that, truly realized it, she stopped posting. The phone went silent. There's a strange peace in being unfollowed by someone who used to plan your entire future. 3 years is enough time to convince yourself something never really happened. She'd built a new version of her life by then, a smaller one. Consulting gigs here and there, a boutique coaching practice, the occasional speaking panel that politely didn't mention leadership integrity. Her posts had grown sparse, less curated, more filtered, her smiles tighter. And then her phone buzzed. She was in a waiting room when it came in, a text from a former colleague, someone she hadn't spoken to since the fallout. Is this your ex? No context, just that. Below it, a photo. It was from a clean energy conference in San Diego. Professional, well-lit, clearly taken by someone who knew how to frame a moment for press. I was mid-speech, standing at a podium with the nameplate, Keynote, Ethan W., Systems and Sustainability. Gone was the beard I used to wear like a shield. My hair was shorter. My posture different, confident in a way that didn't seek approval. Next to me, standing just slightly behind, was a woman, late 30s, poised, focused, one hand resting gently at the small of my back, not possessive, just present. She wasn't dressed like a trophy. She looked like someone who'd earned her place in that room. A name badge hung from her blazer, the words Chief Legal Counsel visible under the logo of a clean energy startup that had made headlines last quarter. Her expression wasn't performative. She wasn't posing for the camera. She was looking at me, and that's what did it. The woman who once whispered that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas now sat frozen, staring at a frozen moment that told her I hadn't disappeared. I had grown. Her fingers pinched the screen, zooming in without even thinking. She scanned my face first, then hers, then, almost involuntarily, lowered her eyes to my hand. There, plain as day, was a ring, different from the one she once wore, sleek, silver, new. The photo didn't speak loudly. It didn't taunt or announce anything, but it carried weight. It said, he moved forward, not away, not into hiding, forward, and somewhere in her gut something cracked, because all this time she had clung to the myth that I had retreated, that I was wounded, living in a cabin with regrets and journals, that maybe, just maybe, I still checked her page once in a while, but the man in the photo didn't scroll through old memories. He was standing in light, in purpose, in presence, and he was no longer looking back. She didn't register at the event. No badge, no seat. She waited just beyond the rope line near the coffee truck parked outside the conference hall, where executives filtered out between panels and press wandered with cameras slung low. I didn't see her at first. The sun was sharp off the glass buildings, and the crowd had that hum of post-session chatter. But as I stepped down the last stair, I caught movement. A familiar posture held tight, arms crossed too tightly over a designer coat that didn't match the Colorado air. She stepped forward fast, as if distance might still be closable with urgency. Ethan, please, just 10 minutes. I paused, looked at her fully, not with anger, not even pity, just clarity. You had years. That stopped her. She blinked, lips parted like the words were there, just not in the order she needed. Her makeup was flawless, her hair done with intention, but her voice cracked beneath it all. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, she said quickly, almost breathless. Mike, it was stupid. It was nothing. I nodded once, slowly. Then let that be your story, I said. Mine moved on. For a second, she didn't move. Just stood there, stunned not by what I said, but how little it shook me to say it. I watched it land, not like a blow, but like a realization that she had prepared for a man who would be hurt, angry, maybe guarded, but secretly hopeful. Instead, she met a man who no longer needed a reason to say no. Around us, people passed, oblivious. The world didn't pause for this reunion. She reached into her bag, pulled out something, maybe a photo, maybe a letter. I didn't look. Just take this. No. The word was calm, final, not theatrical, just a boundary, firm and long overdue. Her arm faltered. Whatever she was holding slid back into her purse, unused. I never stopped thinking about us, she tried. I did, I said, and I meant it. There were no fireworks, no shouts, no closure speeches, just a woman standing in the middle of downtown Denver, realizing too late that she was no longer part of the plot. I turned, stepped into the waiting car, and pulled the door closed behind me. She stood there, framed in the rear view, getting smaller by the second, not because she mattered less, but because I did. The cafe was neutral ground, her choice, though I could tell she expected a safer version of me to show up, one that would still flinch at old memories, maybe waver. It was a quiet spot tucked off a side street in Cherry Creek, all reclaimed wood and minimalist decor, the kind of place where no one raises their voice. She was already seated when I arrived, nervous energy masked under polite charm. The smile she gave me was soft, rehearsed. I didn't return it. I just pulled out the envelope from my coat and set it on the table between us. She looked at it like it might explode. What's this? Closure, I said. She opened the envelope slowly, fingers trembling just enough to betray the calm she wanted to project. As she read, The lines around her eyes deepened. Her mouth moved silently, scanning the front page, then the next. She stopped halfway through the third. Clause 6, she said quietly. I nodded. It was highlighted in yellow. The text read plainly, due to marital infidelity, all claims to joint assets are void, including but not limited to real estate holdings, retirement accounts, and investment portfolios. She looked up. But we never discussed terms. We never agreed to this. I picked up my coffee, took a long sip. The cup was warm, steady in my hand. We did, I said, setting it down. You just didn't read them. She blinked again. Once, twice. The prenup was filed with the county clerk 3 weeks before the wedding. You signed it at your father's office. His legal counsel reviewed it with you page by page. You nodded, smiled, said it was all boilerplate. Her face went pale. I thought that was just in case, she whispered. It was. Silence settled between us. Not awkward, not strained, just factual. She flipped through the last page, my signature, my attorney's, the notary's seal, all dated, all clean. I thought, she trailed off, voice catching in her throat. I thought you wouldn't go through with this. I figured you'd assume that. Her hands dropped to her lap. She looked smaller now, as if the weight of her assumptions had finally started pressing down. She reached for the document again, maybe looking for a loophole, a soft clause she'd missed, but there was nothing left to interpret. You always used to explain things, she murmured. I leaned forward, voice calm. And you always used to listen, until you didn't. She didn't cry. Not there, not in front of me. But I saw her jaw tighten, the faintest tremble at the corner of her mouth. The last card she thought she held had dissolved in her fingers. I finished my coffee, stood, and nodded once. This is the last time we meet. She didn't argue, because even she could see this wasn't about revenge. It was about terms she agreed to long before she thought she'd ever have to honor them. It started like most things do now, with a link. Someone from her old firm texted her, "Skip to 4213. Pretty sure that's about you." The podcast was already viral by then, top of the business charts. A show called Ghost Men and the Quiet Exit, an episode on executive disappearances, the kind of strategic silences that made people uncomfortable because they weren't messy. They were precise. At 4213, the host paused, then said, "This next story comes from a listener who asked to remain anonymous. We verified his background. Former consultant, mid-level exec. Walked away from his marriage, his firm, his city, didn't slam a door, didn't post a thread, just disappeared." And then came my voice, calm, unhurried, almost conversational. I didn't vanish because I was weak. I vanished because silence gives shape to truth, and I waited because truth without weight is just noise. No names, no dates, just moments. A hallway in Vegas, a laugh that didn't match the time, a line that was supposed to be clever but sounded like a dare. That was the night I stopped being part of someone else's narrative. She listened once, then again. Every word hit with the soft pressure of something she hadn't expected to feel again. Not grief, not anger, irrelevance. I didn't mention her career, her fall, the resignation. None of that mattered now. The story I told wasn't about a woman who failed. It was about a man who finally stopped covering for someone who didn't see him until he was gone. And the internet did what it does. Reddit caught the tone, Twitter clipped the quotes, LinkedIn threads dissected it like scripture. He didn't leave because of the lie. He left because of what the lie revealed. I didn't lose her. I just finally noticed she wasn't standing beside me. Her inbox started filling, not with sympathy, questions, probes. Was this about Mike? Is this that rooftop clip guy? Is this why you left the board? She tried to respond to a few, but it was too late. The tone had shifted. People weren't curious about her side. They were quoting mine. Even the sponsors she'd slowly begun rebuilding ties with went quiet. One paused in engagement until next quarter. Another never responded at all. She tried to post a thread about accountability, healing, a vague reflection on the shadows of public life. It flopped, only 3 comments. One was a bot. The other 2 were former peers replying with that neutral tone you use when you don't want to be associated with someone but can't quite look away. By the next week, she deleted the thread. And that was the real silence, not mine, hers. Not because I erased her, but because the world stopped waiting for her version. She was no longer a lead in the story, just a name not spoken, a footnote in someone else's clarity. And the worst part, she knew it. The number wasn't saved in my phone, but I knew the cadence, the way she always started soft, apologetic, like if she made herself small enough, time would collapse around her and offer her a fresh start. I'm sorry, I know it's late, but I miss who we were. 4 years had passed. 4 quiet, solid years. I didn't live in Oregon anymore. We'd moved further north, near the edge of Glacier, where the air was clean in a way that resets you. My work with the cooperative had grown into something bigger: partnerships, infrastructure grants, schools we helped run off solar now sent us holiday cards. And the woman beside me, she didn't ask for explanations, she didn't need to. She walked beside me every morning without reaching for the past. She didn't love a version of me she imagined. She loved the one that had come through fire and didn't feel the need to explain how he got here. I stared at the message for a full day, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I did. 2 mornings later, I replied, "We never were. I just hadn't realized it yet." No read receipt, no follow-up, just silence. And that weekend, on a trail that rose above the tree line just before noon, I paused and took a photo, her hand in mine. No rings, no performance, just presence, wind in her curls, the kind of calm you don't pose for. I posted it later with a caption, "Peace doesn't chase anyone." No hashtags, no tags, no audience in mind. Just a statement, one that didn't need validation. I didn't check if she saw it. I didn't care, because some stories don't end with fireworks, they end when you stop turning around. And walk the rest of the trail with someone who never asked you to disappear in the first place.